Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. Tonight we present unconscious disorders and that strangest of words, binge. Hello, Jennifer. How are you doing this evening? Good to see you. And Cindy's here too. Nice to see you too, Cindy. Well, it's nice to see your guys' icons anyways, you know. I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but I guess you get to see me in, the flesh, sort of, anyways. Okay, so, bragging, here we go. Never a good thing egoically to do, but this beautiful shirt I picked up today, it's just has dragons on it, and just a beautiful shirt at the bin, our neighborhood secondhand store, and it was $3, I think. It was awesome. So tonight we're going to talk about a pretty interesting subject, actually, and a lot of you are going to be really happy about this because this is not really a big deal. And I know you're saying, wait a minute. It can certainly seem like a big deal. But like everything else, it's really not. It's not a big deal. You don't have to worry about this one. This one's really super, super simple. So, without further ado, we're going to... Okay, I don't understand that comment, honey. Oh, it's a smiley face. It is a fine shirt. Yeah, I really like it. It's comfortable, and, I love picking up the deals. Our landfills are filled with hundreds upon hundreds of tons of clothing. It's just unbelievable. And I always believe, instead of taking more, how about we just keep recycling what we've already took? And that works out really well. I personally love it. Another good point. Another wonderful thing that happens upon your journey of awakening is you really do cease to care less and less and less about looking a certain way to please anybody. As a matter of fact, I don't give a rat's. But I do like to be bald and clean shaven. Whether that's left over from the military or what, I'm not sure, but bald's not really a choice with me. Okay, getting off topic. So, the binge, okay? And this has to do with unconscious disorders. And when I say unconscious disorders, I'm not talking about disorders that we're not consciously aware of. I'm talking about disorders that you go unconscious doing. And then you kind of pop awake after it and you go, what did I just do? And when I was young, this is what happened to me. I left home at a very early age, and after living on the street for a while, I went and stayed with my aunt. And my aunt was a wonderful person. She was definitely like my second mother, for sure. And in a lot of ways, she was more my mother, because I understood her a lot better. I really did, and she understood me a lot better, too. And one night, my aunt came downstairs and she told me about this in the morning, and I have no memory of it at all. And she said it was about 1 o'clock in the morning and she heard a noise and she came downstairs, and I had a 4-liter tub of ice cream out, and I was sound asleep, and I was shoveling that tub of ice cream down. And my aunt didn't know what to do, so she didn't wake me up, and pretty soon I got finished with the ice cream, and then I went back to bed. And my aunt shut the freezer, which I had left open, and cleaned up the leftovers, and told me about it in the morning. I had gone totally unconscious to the point where I actually sleepwalked to get to the ice cream and have no memory of that. Now, I'm sure all of us have had similar experiences in some way. Maybe not involving food or involving something else. But here's the really, really beautiful thing about this. It's totally okay and really easy to start dealing with. And I'm going to share with you some wonderful stuff, and it's going to change your whole perspective on it, and you'll feel much better about it in the end. And you won't have to blame yourself either. That's one of the things we tend to do, And really, if you go unconscious, it's not your fault. It's not. So to binge is literally to soak or to soak in. And it is a colloquial phrase or word actually that came out of Lincolnshire. And go figure, those Brits really do like their beer. And it literally means to soak in something. But here's the deal. No matter what you're soaking in externally, whether it's food, chocolate, sex, wine, drugs, alcohol, what you're really looking to soak in is dopamine. And guess what? There are a whole bunch of people out there, not a little percentage, but a big percentage of the population who don't have sufficient number of dopamine receptors. Or they have dopamine receptors, but their dopamine receptors are not turning on. And what this means is you're not feeling the reward, which is a flood of dopamine, which is the pleasure chemical of the brain. When you do something that makes you feel really good, it's not the doing that makes you feel really good. That's why I say you don't even really need to do it. And, and I'm going to take a tiny little segue, no reference to the scooter, down this little path for a second, okay? But, when I would meditate for months at a time, and when I say meditate for months at a time, I mean literally spending all day meditating every day. Included walking meditation, and did include eating meditatively, showering meditatively. But, a lot of people would say, well, you're missing out on life. It's like, actually, you're not really missing out on life. Because all those external things are having internal triggers, and those internal triggers we can operate without the external. So think about something really pleasurable right now. Anything. Really get into it in your head. I don't care if it's sex or food or ice cream or whatever it is for you. Just think about something that gives you a lot of pleasure, just for a moment. Just picture it in your mind. That feeling you're getting as you're doing that is dopamine. It's a chemical that's released in the brain. And that is what you're interpreting in mind as what's coming out as signals from your body. Now, here's where things begin to get a little tricky. Okay, so number one, you need to go see a GP and find out what they can do to take a look at the number of dopamine receptors you have available and or help turn them off. And there's lots of new therapies to deal with that. So that's route one. But there's even easier routes to this, and they all involve that one word that I keep repeating to Kelly over and over and over again. Honey, if you please. She's typing it in right now. Do, 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 do. Awareness. There you go. That's it. Awareness, awareness, awareness. You see, there's two things in all of humanity's mind that we equate reward or pleasure equals survival. Hello, Devora. We did not know you were here. Good to see you. She's been hiding behind the curtain, apparently. This is what happens. There are literally two things in the human mind where reward equals survival. One of them is sex. Go figure. You procreate, you have babies, the species survives. You get the reward, the sex, and you make the babies. Perfect. There's one more, though. What else does it take for us to survive? Food. That's why we make such a big deal about food. The reward equals survival. So, if we have an insufficient number of dopamine receptors or they are not functioning properly, what happens is we look at food as survival. And we're not being triggered that we're getting the survival reward to show us we're going to survive. And I hope this is making perfect sense. So what happens? Our tiny brain, that reptilian brain, that remnant of our old brain, that is controlling all the autonomic functions, takes over. It literally takes you over. Why? Because you have to survive. And you go unconscious. And whatever you're eating, from a bag of cookies to a 2-kilogram chocolate bar, will disappear. And when you come conscious again, when the body finally when that little reptilian brain of yours, little snake that it is, finally realizes that, in other words, finally there's enough dopamine flooding the brain. Okay, the receptors have uptaken enough of that dopamine to register themselves as being full and satisfied. Will you come conscious again? And then you're going to feel like crap. And you're probably going to want to purge. And this can begin a cycle. And this has nothing to do with bulimia. Do not confuse the two. This is a totally different thing. This only has to do with what is known as reward deficiency syndrome. You are not feeling at a baser mind level, at a survival mind level, okay, at that instinctive mind level, that you are surviving. So therefore you start plugging that food in. Or it can be sex. You can be addicted to sex for this reason and for other reasons. But one of them can simply be a lack of dopamine, that you're not getting the dopamine to the brain. Fewer dopamine receptors, easy to deal with. And this isn't a fault issue. And like I said, there's some brain tricks that we can do to deal with this. And we're going to talk about those. And you can help yourself out immensely with this. The reward equals survival lie. And of course, it is a lie these days. Because realistically, especially in the first world, survival is relatively assured. The level of survival and how well you survive and how comfortable you are, totally not part of that picture, and it's unfortunate. But survival these days is not really the question. So this whole idea of reward equals survival is that leftover remnant, and we can go unconscious quite quickly. Now, there are a few other things involved, and we're going to deal with this on the third storyboard, okay? But I do want to get through the more science and medical side of this first, okay? It is not willpower. It has nothing to do with an ego-driven addiction. Do not ever confuse the two of them. But it can tie in with emotions. And again, we're going to change that word because people tend to use the word emotions incorrectly. They are actually feelings. They tie in with feelings that we create in the mind that typically involve us not feeling good about things, about being us being on edge, something that's not satisfying, something that's not, we feel things are not complete for us. So when we have an opportunity, especially if you have fewer dopamine receptors, food is one of the easiest ways to trigger a dopamine release. Next to simply really visioning something that you enjoy. And that's what we can do as well. It is chemically driven. It is not driven by your consciousness. So go see your GP. Talk with your GP about this and take that first step. And now we're going to talk about some of the other aspects on it, okay? And this is where conscious awareness comes in. It's necessary to review your feeling state. And one of the things you can do is if there's anything in the house that is the object to which you go to and become unconscious, whether it's chocolate, wine, whatever. Doesn't matter. Cheesecake. Personally, we're going to have fresh strawberry pie again tonight. Kelly couldn't wait or resist it. But you have to review your feeling state and put those things out of the house. Or package them up in single serving packages. And this can be a really great way to help yourself out. So if it's chocolate, take that whole chocolate bar or the box of chocolates and put them in single bags. Single bags. Or better yet, wrap them up nice and tight. Twist them in a knot. Put a tie on them. And turn it into what looks like a little bath bomb. How will the GP know? The GP won't know, but you have to go to a GP first because the GP has to make a recommendation to send you to a specialist or have those tests done. You just can't walk in and say, test me to somebody. So that's why you see your GP first. Always a good idea. Review your feeling state. Review how you're feeling. And here's where the awareness comes in, okay? If you package up whatever it is, and if it's wine, pour them in single glasses and package up each one of those glasses. If you can't get rid of it, keep it, but package it up one at a time. Write the word awareness right on that little package. Remove blame from yourself. Accept responsibility. That you can choose to deal with this, and you can deal with this in many ways. One of them is the doctor, and here's the other way. The second way is to take action with yourself. To become consciously aware that this is what's happening and this is why it's happening. And now you can take conscious control of that before it goes unconscious. You can reach in and you can take out that one chocolate that has the word awareness written on it. And that awareness will trigger you to, wait a minute, Garhen told me to think about this one for a minute. And you could say, what does this chocolate represent to me? Why am I choosing this chocolate right now? Why not a piece of fruit? Why not 2 minutes of yoga, a brisk walk around the block, a few minutes of breathing in fresh air consciously, meditatively, and perhaps not putting the chocolate down the first time, perhaps eating that chocolate, and perhaps looking at a second one that says awareness on it and eating that one too. But you will find that you do not have to go down that unconscious road. You can understand that what your brain is doing unconsciously is seeking reward in the form of chemical release. And you can accomplish that same thing by sitting peacefully with yourself and fully imagining and fully imaging something very pleasurable to you. Something that you love doing that makes you feel wonderful. Engage in more activities that cause good feelings. You know, a lot of times we begin to feel bad and we don't know how to deal with that feeling bad, or perhaps we're not honest enough with ourselves or with other people around us. And we internalize those sort of things, and the brain, of course, wants to feel good. The dopamine feels good. It does. That's the pleasure chemical. So when you feel bad, you want to feel good. And when you want to feel good, you go reach for something that's going to make you feel good really quick. But there's always something in there, and that's called guilt. And the guilt comes upon you that what you're doing is somehow your fault. And it's not. It's chemical. It's chemically driven. It can be triggered by your feeling state. Yes, absolutely. But it is chemical, and therefore you can have conscious awareness over it. I answered that one already. Examine where you are not being honest with yourself. Examine where there are parts of your life where you look to whatever it is that you reach for when you're feeling low. And of course, there are a few obvious things to think about too, okay? Now, I'm making an assumption, and since assumptions are a terrible thing to do, I'm going to back right out of my assumption, and I'm going to add this. We're assuming, of course, that in the course of the past, you've already gone to a GP or you've had regular checkups and the like, and you are not hyperglycemic, for example. You know, that was kind of my issue. I was hyperglycemic. So and there is a difference between hypo and hyper. So, you know, you can also talk to the GP about that too. If you're having sugar lows, okay, your body will go into that reward survival mode. Quite obviously, an RDS deficiency, right? The reward deficiency syndrome will kick in if your dopamine receptors are not taking up that dopamine. A balanced diet is a big part of this. Eating small, regular meals. Beginning to look at food more as fuel, and this is something that I've done for years, and it's something that Kelly noticed right away about me. She said, you enjoy good, healthy food, but you don't get pleasure from it. And I said, no, it's fuel. It's meant to keep the body running. If I put too much on food, food begins to possess me. Middle road. Right? Everything in moderation. You can see this disorder that you would call it, or society would call it, or psychology would call it, or the medical community would call it, as an opportunity for growth in conscious awareness, as an opportunity to face yourself more deeply and find out what the trigger is, because there's always a trigger. And we've talked about triggers before. Many of you probably won't remember. It was a long time ago when we started, way back in February or March. We had this video on ego triggers. And the ego trigger can actually set off the cycle, but the cycle doesn't belong to us. The cycle is a chemical problem. So let go of your guilt in this. Let go of any blame that you may have. Do not beat yourself up if you find yourself purging. And, let's cut to the chase here. What we're really talking about is puking in the toilet with the door shut and the fan on so no one hears you. And I know how you feel to be there. I really do. And it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself for this. But you must take responsibility. And in that responsibility, you will regain power over this. I swear to you. And you know what? You can set up a messenger video call with me if you need to talk to me about this. If you're dealing with this sort of thing yourself and you're having troubles, you would discuss it a little deeper. If you want to get to the bottom of what it is, in the feeling level, in what's happening in the mind, get a hold of me. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to serve you. And through you, I serve myself. That's how it really works. The minute you get that in your head, everything for you will change. It really will. As with everything, we have two choices on how we can view things. We can view things as an obstacle and as a real problem in our lives. Or we can begin to get excited at the opportunities it can offer. On a side note, we're at that stage right now where just today they finished the drywalling in the basement. So I went down there and tore a bunch of old tile out that was down on the floor. And tomorrow I'm going to prep the floor and fix the cement and seal it. And we're going to go through this whole procedure again of putting new laminate down. And it's the second time around. We had just finished. It doesn't upset me. It excites me. Why? Because I had another great idea that I wouldn't have had if this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have been able to see if this hadn't happened. So I'm excited about it. It's always choice. It's always choice. If there are any of you who have any questions regarding this sort of thing or find yourself in those situations and you need to ask something about it, feel free to ask me here or set up that private conversation. It's not an appointment, okay? You are my brothers and sisters. We're simply touching base again. Yes, get your yoga studio back. We're so looking forward to it. Right now, the yoga studio is the deck, and the weather's not cooperating very much. Unless you like doing the yoga in the rain and the mosquitoes. It's, they like me a little too much. So, we're going to wrap this one up in a few minutes because this is how simple this one is. It doesn't need a lot of complicated solutions. The solutions are really, really simple. And regardless of what can or cannot be done in terms of your dopamine uptake, it doesn't really matter, because if you understand that, if you understand why it's happening, you can instead turn that to your advantage and beginning to use that lack of uptake to find, Devora says, I'm in that situation, no doubt about it. I'm very aware, very conscious of what I'm doing and not doing. Well, that's good. Because, that's where we need to stay. And we need to be aware when we reach for the things that are trying to fill those voids that we feel. Because, of course, nothing external will ever fill that void. It always comes down to the same thing, okay? It always comes down to that awareness, the ability to see what we're doing from that forest view instead of the tree. And the biggest thing to deal with in these sort of disorders is, of course, the guilt. The punishment that we heap upon ourselves, thinking that somehow it's us that's at fault for this. And it's not. It's chemical imbalance. And it can be dealt with. The triggers, however, must be dealt with. Those things which set you off, those things which cause you to reach for whatever it is that you find yourself going unconscious in. And believe it or not, television, movie watching, too much time on TV is really counterproductive, because in that state, all those shows, commercials, everything are designed to keep you unconscious, to have you subsume your consciousness to the show. That's why you'll cry during a show when something bad happens. That's why you'll get happy and laugh when something good happens. It's because part of your consciousness has subsumed itself into the show consciousness. And you find yourself identifying with it. And some people, Kelly is one of them. I've watched her. If she catches the side of a video screen and there's a bunch of stuff happening, I can literally watch her glaze over as she drops into it. And then what do? We end up picking up a big bag of chips. Like, we don't eat chips, okay? But a lot of people will. They'll pick up a big bag of chips. And, of course, it's a lot cheaper to buy the really big bag. And then you eat the whole thing. Good. That's good. It's good to hear. It really is, And one of the first things we need to do is, as I said, portion things up when you bring them in the door. Honestly, my willpower for Mike Hikes is the front door. Like, I got to tell you, if there are Mike Hikes in the house, I'm going to find them and I'm going to eat them. And I'm going to eat a bunch. So what I've done to get a grip on that is I portion out a little handful, and I put that handful beside me, and I put the boxes away. Because if I don't, I'll mow through a box of them. And then I turn the box over and realize that it's like 2/3 of the calories that I just ate today. All healthy, and then I just put, 10 tablespoons of sugar inside of me. Not so good, really. Especially if it's right before bed. And then you wonder why I can't sleep at night. I'm buzzing around like a top. So portion these things up. Take conscious control again. Get those thoughts, words, and deeds lined up in dealing with this, and you will find things turning around in this area so easily. You really will. And believe in yourself. These are the things that it takes. It takes a positive outlook about you. You can do this. You can do anything. Take my word for it. There is nothing beyond your capability. Nothing that can have a hold on you. Nothing that can stop you from realizing the truth of your being and living in that truth of your being. good news, best news. So that's really about what I have tonight. And as always, I don't try to make the stream flow any faster than it will. I am really excited about our Tong Len meditation on Wednesday night. Looking forward to that. It's going to be a beautiful loving kindness meditation where we are not only going to do the loving kindness, but we are also going to, prior to it, talk about why it's perfectly okay to take on all the pain and suffering of others, and what happens when we do that, and how we transmute that through the grace of that sea of consciousness. As well, Thursday begins the 8 Limbs of Yoga. Should be a fantastic series. I am greatly looking forward to this, as yoga is very dear to me on not only a physical level, but actually on an emotional, mental, and spiritual level as well. It truly is. That's it for today. Much love. Namaste. I hope this video has helped you feel a little better, has helped you come to an understanding of what you face and how you can deal with it. And of course, if you need me, if you want to talk, get a hold of me. I'm always here. Take care. Have a wonderful night.